Hello everyone, it's Lindsay and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be another what's in my cart. So I did this for the first time last month for ByTheWell4God's Contending for the Faith devotional kit. And you guys kind of loved it. There were lots of requests to continue doing this type of video, and a lot of people found it helpful, and it was fun for me, and it actually was very helpful for me as well. I don't typically do this, and so we're gonna do the same thing for this month for the Follow Me devotional kit. I will have my unboxing link down below for you guys if you haven't seen that yet, if you're curious what all comes in the release, and specifically what the devotional content is about this month. It's gonna be another good one. So, if this is the first time you've seen one of these videos, you might be thinking, this is excessive for Bible journaling and doing a Bible study. And yes, this is a lot of product. And part of that is because I have a lot of stuff in my space. And so the reason I did this was a couple different things. Was to inspire you guys to do something similar in a way to organize your stuff. That way you're getting it off of your desk, your table, giving you more space to work in, having everything kind of in one grouping, but also as a reminder of some things that you might have in your stash. So while I will have links to everything that I can fit in the description box down below, this isn't necessarily like you need to go out and buy everything that I have in this cart. That is a lot. It's really put together in a way to remind you of some things that maybe you have in your stash that you've forgotten about. If you've been watching me over the years and kind of collecting things as I've done certain videos, there may be some things in here that you have forgotten about because I haven't used it in a video in a while. Like punch boards and things like that. That might be something that you bought and stashed away and haven't used. So doing this cart is, a good way to have everything organized, but also to kind of refresh your memory and pull out some things from your stash. You don't have to buy a whole bunch every single kit that comes out. And so that's kind of why I wanted to do that. So I did pull a lot of stuff. Again, a lot more than I will likely use in the month, but I want to also be inspiring you guys. You may not have every single stamp set, but you may have one or two of the ones that I mentioned. So what I have here is a Raskog cart. They have these at Michael's, IKEA. I think this one in particular is probably from Walmart or Michael's. And so in the top section of the cart, I have mostly items from the Follow Me release. So a lot of the paper crafting items, as well as a few paper crafting things from my stash, a few inks, but mostly is going to be stickers and stencils and things like that. I did put the stamps here from the release, the Follow Me release. The second section is mostly going to be mediums, so sprays, inks, embossing powders. I'm going to be using some watercolor ground this month, watercolors and things like that, but also a whole bunch of stamps, dies, and embossing folders. And so I've gone through my stash of ByTheWell4God stamps, pulled out a variety of past stamp sets that will coordinate with this release. Some are still available, a lot of them are no longer available, but again, this is just to remind you that you may have them tucked away somewhere. So I have those. And then the bottom section is mostly going to be tools, so trimmers, punch boards. I do have some vellums and papers, and I also have my illustrating Bible. So in my unboxing video, I mentioned that I was going to be working through the illustrating Bible for the kit this month, and that is specifically to challenge myself. I know many of you guys have that Bible. That Bible is not super friendly with watercolors. This month's kit is very watercolor heavy, and so I want to challenge myself to use watercolors in it, show you some tips and tricks for ways to use watercolor in there more simply and less frustrating, and some other ways that you can kind of incorporate those elements into that particular Bible, because I know a lot of you have it. So let's use it. Don't be afraid to pick up this kit because you have that Bible and that's the only journaling Bible that you have. I'm going to be showing you lots of different ways to use it. So we're going to head on over to my desk and I'm going to break down each section and show you everything. It is going to be a long video, but grab a snack, hang with me. I will try to have as much as I can linked down below. I do have limited characters for that space, so if something didn't get linked and you want a link, shoot me a message and I will set you up with that. So let's head on over to my desk and I'll walk you through what's in my cart for Follow Me. Okay, so I've gone ahead and pulled everything from the top of the cart. Now, you can organize it however works best for you. I just kind of tuck things into places, and the top is things that are new usually that I want to be really intentional about using, like the new stamps and new things from the kit and things like that. And then I just kind of fit things in as they fit. And so I want to start with this because I get a lot of questions when I do use this. This is a traveler's notebook cover. This one is from Chic Sparrow. A sweet online friend had actually sent me this one since my favorite color was purple, and it isn't a purple match. It's not a perfect match, but it is close to the colors. I don't have a whole lot of TN covers, and so I don't worry too much about the TN cover matching the kit, but in this instance, it happened to do that. And so this makes it really convenient to take items from the kit with me. And so while there is lots of pretty fun things here and that you will see throughout this video, the core of all of this is the devotional content. And so this keeps the traveler's notebook insert with the devotional content in here, and I'll go through and use sticky notes and various things like that in here to take my notes and work through it before I even begin creating. So since this particular one doesn't have a whole lot of space to journal in and do responses and things like that, I did go ahead and set up a blank traveler's notebook. These come in a 2-pack from ByTheWell4God, and they coordinate with the release. So I took one of them and just took the kit sticker and a doily to indicate that this one goes with this particular kit. And then this gives me room to journal thoughts. I can do prayers, notes, word studies. I can even use this just for journaling, ideas for what I want to include in a Bible journaling entry or something like that. And so it just gives me some space to write and create in. And then I can add other things in here like my grocery list or whatever I need to put in here for on the go. So this won't necessarily always stay in my cart, but that is probably going to be something I get a lot of questions about when you see the photos. So moving on to all the fun, pretty things, let's just start getting some things out of the way. I did go ahead and stick my Distress Oxide inks up on the top. This is a look at the colors that I've picked. Now, I usually just go off of the ByTheWell4God color swatches, though I did add in Picked Raspberry. So there's Picked Raspberry, Stormy Sky, Blueprint Sketch, Dusty Concord, Peeled Paint, Victorian Velvet, and Spun Sugar, and then Kitsch Flamingo. I don't have a color swatch on that one quite yet because it's one of the new ones. So those are the oxides, but now when it comes to any other mediums that you see distress-wise, they will be this color palette. So the Distress Spray Stains, Spray Oxides, the crayons, anything that I have that's distress, it will be this color palette for this month. Now, I can bring in other things as I need them, but this just is the core colors, and it'll be easy to reach for. So there is that color palette of oxide inks. I did go ahead and pull out a selection of washi. I have a lot of washi and I don't use it very often. And so I'm trying to be more intentional about just using a little bit each kit. That way I can get through it. So a lot of these are probably no longer available. This pink grid is from Felicity Jane. It's one of their newer washis. This one here is actually from Creative Retreat. So if that one is available, I will link it. This is a fabric washi that I got from Michael's years ago. This one here, I think a sweet subscriber sent me. It's by Simply Gilded, and it just has some watercolor florals, and then this is like an old, probably came from like a mixed box years ago. So I won't necessarily link all the washis down below, but just a reminder, go through your washi stash, pick out specific washis that coordinate with the kit, and then you'll be more likely to use up the things that you have, like washi tape. If you're a washi collector like I am, sometimes that hoard can get out of control. This here, so these are actually from Simon Hurley. They are stamping blocks. So these are like a foam that you heat up, and then you can press it into texture. So this one I have pressed into a embossing folder. So you heat it up with your heat tool for a few seconds, press it down into an embossing folder. You could even do a stencil or stamp. I mean, anything that's gonna add texture. And then it cools and holds on to that texture. So this was done months ago and it's still in there until I heat it again, and then it will go away. And so now this is a stamp. So I can apply different mediums to this and stamp it down. It's great for doing backgrounds. The thing with the Illustrating Bible paper is that it doesn't do well being really worked with a paintbrush and water. And so I want to be able to create, soft, watercolor backgrounds without having to do a lot of working of the paper. And so this way I could do a spray stain or something like that and then stamp it down and get that soft washi color. So this was the original size. They've come out with a larger size now. And so I put both of those in there. Again, just another one of those tools that maybe I have a tendency to forget to use, and by having it in my cart, it's right in front of me and I remember to use it. And so I will be trying to use that throughout this month. Okay, in this little stack here, I have the alpha stickers and things like that from the release. And then I just have kind of a selection of papers. If you have watched my tips and tricks video for this release, I will link that down below if you haven't. I did some techniques with acetate and with vellum and with mixed media paper. And so I've gone ahead and just cut down some of that already and then have it in my cart ready to go, so I'm intentional about using it. So just several pieces of acetate. I'll put some colored vellum in here as well, maybe even some colored cardstocks. Again, that just makes it so you can create a lot quicker, especially if you're doing die cuts and things like that. Go through your paper stash, go through your cardstock stash, vellum stash, scrap stash, grab scraps that coordinate in the colors and then stick them in your cart, and then you'll use up the things that you have. So there is a little stack of mostly stickers, but some papers. I have a little porcelain tray. This gets all of the die cut ephemera pieces from the kit, the fabric, things like that. And then I pulled out some mini wide paper clips from Felicity Jane in this really light blush pink color. Again, it does not have to be specific to ByTheWell4God. It can be other brands of things that you have in your stash, and just go through and color coordinate. So if these particular colors are available, I will link them down below for you guys, but that is what's in this little tray. And then I have a little pile of fibers. So this little mess of embroidery floss. I always like to have textures, especially with just watercolor, it being, you know, pretty flat. I want to add some texture fibers and things. So some embroidery floss. This is just some like cloth that was wrapped around an open journey kit that I received. And so I can cut this apart, tear it apart, stamp on it, sew on it. I want to keep things very soft, so lots of whites with a little bit of that soft pinks and blues and things like that. So I'm reaching for more white fabric. And then this is dyeable ribbon. This is actually sold at ByTheWell4God. It is like seam binding that they've gone ahead and put on a fun little clip there for you. And this can be tinted and colored. You can use it white, just how it is, but you can tint this with spray stains. You could even do it with watercolor, gelatos, different kinds of inks, to custom color it. Again, just another way to add fibers and texture to what I'm creating. And this is, you know, plain white, so I can color it whatever I want. Same goes for the lace ribbon. Anytime I'm getting ribbons, or, you know, things like that, I try to go for white because then I can color it whatever I want. I don't need to have 50 different colors of ribbons. I can just do white, color it with the spray stains and gelatos and things like that, and then custom colorize it to whatever I'm working on. So there's just a little bit of lace trim. So just a little pile of fibers. That usually kind of stays in the cart. It stayed, most of that was there from last month. I went ahead and pulled out the new stamps from the Follow Me release. I do think that the Strive to Enter is sold out. They may be bringing that one back, but most everything else should be in stock in the shop. So I put the new stamps up on the top of my cart because these are the new ones. I want to make sure that I get at least a few uses out of these before they just integrate into my baskets of stamps. While I did pull out additional stamps that I want to remember to use, I want to use the new ones as well. So those stay up on the top of the cart. And then I have this little goodie. So this is a desk organizer from Target. If it's still available, I will link it down below for you guys. And it's just chock full of things. A lot of it is going to be items from the release. So I'm not going to go through all of those. I do have the two new stencils from the release. I know that's going to be hard to see. Blossom and Stone Path. But I also pulled out a few Tim Holtz stencils. I have a lot of stencils that are kind of a favorite tool of mine. And so I have the Floral stencil. Just thought that that would go with the kind of blossom look. There is Blossom. So this is a different style of blossom than the ByTheWell4God blossoms. I may not use all of them, but it gives me some variety. And again, reminding me to use things that I have. Grime layering. Now, I know not a lot of people like splatters and mess, and so this stencil allows you to have that splattery look without the mess. So we can do like baby wipes with watercolor through this to give you that splatter look. I can do inks, I can do, you know, a variety of different things through this stencil. Obviously it's well loved, it's filthy. And then there is the stone stencil. So this is slightly different than the stone path one there. This is more of like a brick. So I may not use it, but you know what? I'm gonna pull it out and I'm gonna have it there just in case. So that is tucked in that little bin, and then I have the papers from the release, and then back here I pulled these. Now I didn't pull a whole lot of Tim Holtz stuff, even though I love his stuff. It's more on the grungy vintage side, and that's not really necessarily the style of this particular kit, but I did pull out these worn wallpaper scraps because it did have some colors in here that coordinated with the kit, and so maybe if I wanted to just, you know, cut off a little piece and make my own little journaling card or die cut from it, I could do that. I mean, definitely some of these are not going to color coordinate, but there are some in here that have similar colors that I can use. And then it has all of these little floral bits and bobs as well. So if I want kind of, you know, a different look on a page, I can use these in there. Again, may not get used, but I'm pulling them out just in case. I have the Tag Bob kit in here. I did see that Taryn, Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, is gonna be doing a project through this month. So I'm gonna let her do that. If it looks like more, you know, you guys want more inspiration, I may, if I have time, put together one of these at the end of the month. For it, but this is an alternative to doing Bible journaling entries, or you could do both. But if you're, you know, not wanting to work directly in your Bible, this is definitely an option. It does look like these are sold out, but you could create this with some dies. I'm gonna show you the dies that I pulled out. This little goodie. So I have had this in my stash from like way back when. This is one of the first things I think I ordered from ByTheWell4God. So they have these Daniel Smith watercolor Try It color sheets. So this has 66 colors of Daniel Smith watercolor, similar to how they do their little watercolor samples in the kit, but they are a little bit smaller, but they're 66 colors. So while this gives you the ability to try them out and figure out what colors you like before you buy, it also gives you plenty of paint here that you can use it throughout the month. And so if I'm not gonna be using the watercolor palettes that I have, I can use this. For those of you who don't have a watercolor palette yet, this might be a good idea for you to try. It's super inexpensive. There isn't a ton of paint on here, but there is enough paint that you can kind of do a few entries, get a feel for it, and see if watercolors are something that you want to continue using and playing with. And then they do sell these in the tubes, so you can buy full tubes of these colors and just kind of build up your collection. But I went ahead and just swatched them out. It does look like some of them over time have kind of lightened up. Like I said, I've had it for years and years. I created my own swatch on some watercolor paper and then just swatched them out so I can see what the colors are. So I've got that in there. Let's see, in this center section, I have the fabrics that coordinate, and then I have my little pieces that I created for my tips and trick video. So if you haven't seen that, I show how to dry emboss on vellum. I show you how to dry emboss on cardstock and then add some added texture and dimension to it. I show you how to do stamping in alcohol ink on acetate. This was really fun. And so I will be creating more of these and then just keeping these in that bin so they're ready to go. I don't have to stop and do this technique every single time I want to create an entry. If I just have a little bit of time in the afternoon, I can sit down and make a few of these samples, and then I've got them to reach for when I create a page. And then I just have my swatches of the colors from the kit. That way I just kind of have a running eyeball of what color is what when I reach for it. So that is tucked in that section as well. I grabbed the bag of bags. I did see that these were back in stock. I ended up not using these last month, and so I brought them out so that I could hopefully use them this month because there are some that I think would be really pretty with this kit. And so it's just that. It is a bag full of different types and sizes of bags and envelopes and things like that. So I will have that linked down below for you guys. Especially great if you're doing that tag bob ring. These would be fun to incorporate into that tag bob. Pulled out some distress tags. Again, if you're using the tag bob, These tags are a different style and size, but I like the variety and chunk and fluff and like pieces coming out. You can do it uniform, but I like it to be random and chaotic. And so these are a mixed media heavy stock, and so you can go crazy with like inks and paints and things like that on here, whereas this paper is a really nice card stock, but it's not quite a heavy stock, so I wouldn't go wild with like tons and tons of water on these particular tags. And they're pre-printed with color, so if you're wanting to do, you know, something without the pre-printed color, you could add these in with that tag bob or make your own tag bob if you missed out on the kits. These have 20 tags in a package, so you could create your own tag bob with these. And then I just have a thank you card in that center section. And then in the final little corner is just all the little bits and pieces from the release. So all of the paint chip cards, labels, alpha stickers, journaling cards, the flash cards, things like that are just tucked in there. Again, just trying to have all of the kit release items right up front, so I'm intentional about using as much of it as I possibly can during this month. So there's a look at what's in the top of my cart. Let me go ahead, clear this off, grab everything out of the second section, and we'll go through that. Okay, I'm gonna have to bring this section out in bits and pieces because there is a lot packed in there. So this is gonna be mostly mediums, dies, stamps, and embossing folders. So right up front, I've got two different watercolor palettes. This one is actually primarily the Art Philosophy or Prima Marketing watercolors. So those are the ones that come in the little black tins in different sets. There's like, I don't know, there's oceans and nature and all different kinds of ones. And so I've broken all those apart, added, whatchamacallit, magnets to the bottom of them, which over time, because my house gets hot, those don't always stick, but they have magnets, and then I pop them into this empty watercolor tin. I will link this tin down below for you guys. It actually holds less than what I have in here, but I remove the metal insert piece and I just jam pack as many as I can in here. These that are like this are Daniel Smith watercolors. I have the little Primatech set, and so I've gone ahead and plopped those into some empty watercolor pans, and then I swatch everything out. So these are the watercolors that I primarily reach for. There are a lot of different watercolor options, but they were Prima Marketing, now they're Art Philosophy. Those ones are really good kind of for the value. They're a craft watercolor, so they're not as nice as the Daniel Smith ones, but for Bible journaling and just kind of getting started with watercolors, they're a good price point for the quality. Definitely better than like those $5 watercolors from Michaels. You can start with those, but if you're finding that you're kind of frustrated with how chalky and how they kind of transfer, these are a nice upgrade. So this is, again, primarily Daniel Smith and Art Philosophy watercolors. And then a sweet online friend, guys, I have so many sweet online, all of you guys are just amazing, sent me this little tin of Daniel Smith watercolors. So she had a collection of tubes of watercolors, and she kind of put together this special little palette of some things that she thought I would love. She knows that I love this kind of purpley tone, definitely the Primatech line, the ones that have lots of sediment and colors in them. And so she actually filled little like water bottle lids, put a magnet on there, and put together this awesome little tin for me with some Daniel Smith watercolors. So if you see this in a future video, this is what it is. It was put together special for me, and so I love it. I feel so loved every time I pull it out and get to use it. So that is what's in that fun little tin there. So definitely gonna be used watercolors, but I have a few other things. So I pulled out the Neocolor 2 crayons to work with if you only can buy one thing and you want something that's really versatile. Neocolor 2 crayons are nice because you can use them like watercolors, but you can also use them for other techniques. I do have a Tip Tuesday video, I'll link it down below, all about Neocolor 2 crayons and different ways that you can use them. But I have the color pink, violet, olive, night blue, carmine, light olive, and aubergine. Again, I can pull out other colors if I need them, but those are the ones that I have in there. I pulled out some distressed crayons. These are kind of similar to Neocolor 2 crayons, but not really. They're a little bit different. These are closer to gelatos, but again, kind of different from gelatos. I actually prefer these to gelatos. And so I pulled out the colors that I have. Now, I don't have the entire range of them, so I've just went through and pulled out the ones that I do have. Again, going along with that palette that I showed you at the beginning of the distressed oxides. I just pulled out the ones that I have from that palette. Pulled out some Arteza brush markers. If you watched my tips and tricks video, you'll know what I use these for. So I just went through and pulled out the ones that I used for that particular video. So if I want to do that technique again, I can. In here, I also have my alcohol ink brush. I use a different brush for alcohol inks than I do for any other medium. And so since I do have some alcohol inks pulled for this month, I want this out where I can find it because I only have 2 alcohol ink brushes, so that's going to stay in there as well. So that goes in that little tin. You could add Inktense pencils or your gelatos, you know, any of those type of items that you might be using. Even colored pencils. Go through your colored pencils and pull the colors that coordinate with the kit and put them in one of these pencil holders, and then you've got everything all ready to go. I'm not going to pull out all of the spray stains and oxides because I'm just using the palette that I had mentioned at the beginning of the video in both spray stains and oxide sprays. I went through and pulled what I have. I don't have all of them in both, but I have a lot of them, and so I pulled those out. These do bleed through your Bible pages, but I can use them on, you know, ephemera pieces, die cuts, creating custom colored cardstocks if I want to. For die cutting, that's primarily what I use these for. So I've got tons of those in there. I also have some transparent watercolor ground, and so I talk about this in the tips and tricks video a little bit. When you're working in the Illustrating Bible, because it doesn't love watercolor, I will likely be page prepping the pages that I watercolor on, and this is the page prep that I prefer for watercolor. This does allow a little bit of absorption of the medium, not to the point of bleed through, not to the point of the fibers of the paper, but it does kind of hold on a grip to it, so it performs a little bit more like you're working on watercolor paper as opposed to clear gesso or matte gel medium or something like that. So if you're into page prep, this is what I will be prepping. Now, page prep means you're just putting a medium down on the page that's creating a barrier between the product that you're using, whether that be inks or watercolors, whatever it might be, and the fibers of the paper that the paper is made out of. And that way you don't have bleed through and things like that. It's just going to prep the page for watercolor mediums. So I've got that pulled out. Let's see, everything is just covered in color. In this little container, I've pulled out the VersaMagic inks. Again, I'm just going off of the color palette that ByTheWell4God had put out. And so Purple Hydrangea, Aspen Mist, Wheat, Spring Pansy, Tea Leaves, and Pixie Dust. So I've got those in there. I don't use those a whole lot very often, but I've got them now pulled out if I decide I want some kind of colored ink that isn't going to bleed through. These are a pigment ink. I pulled out some distress glazes. I don't have all of these, so I pulled out from my stash what I thought would kind of color coordinate semi with the kit. And so I have Prize Ribbon, I have Villainous Potion, this one is probably Kitsch Flamingo, and then Antique Linen. So I just put little swatches on the top. That way it's really easy to see what that color is going to be like. These glazes are just that. They're a glaze. They're translucent. So if I was to put a stamped image underneath here and then emboss over it with this, you'd be able to see that stamped image. And so I may not use them, but you know, I wanted to have the colors set out so I'm not having to rummage through everything. Got some archival ink and black soot in case I want to do the stamping on acetate technique that I showed in the tips and tricks. And then I have a whole bunch of alcohol inks. So if you want to see how I'm going to be using these, definitely watch that tips and trick video. I kind of show you exactly how I'll be using these for a watercolor look. Using acetate, you could do the same thing on vellum. I have lettuce, stonewashed cranberry, eggplant, cool berry, glacier, teakwood, pink sherbet, purple twilight, and wild plum. And so I can use those. Definitely do not use these on your Bible pages. They will leak through, and not just one page, like the entire Bible. So don't put these on a Bible page. These are going to be more for like tinting metals, but also working on acetates and vellums and things like that. So that is what I've got in there. And now moving on to the big old stack of fun things. So let's kind of pull out, let's go through the By the Well stamps first. So I have the outliner numbers. These coordinate with the outliner alphas. So this always stays in the cart so that I can use that. This is a much, much older stamp. This was actually done by Ashley back when she was creating content for By the Well4God. She did some drawings and some stamps and things like that. So way, way, way in the way back stamp set. I can't even remember what this one is called, but I pulled it because it has this truck. So it was kind of developed around like fall, Christmas time. So it has the trees and things like that. But you could mask this off and stamp florals in there. You don't have to stamp anything in the truck, but there was lots of trucks imagery throughout the kit this month. And so I thought it'd be fun to pull this out. Again, you may have this in your stash from the way, way, way back. Pull it out and use that. Narrow Way. This was released a few months ago. It's this beautiful scene here. Here you can see it's very like kind of Art Deco style. I don't know. It's very clean lines, but just by changing how you color this in with watercolors, you could be very messy, very washy with it. You can get a similar look to the kit release, and it goes along with some of the, like houses and doors and windows that we saw in the release. So another, this is one of those stamps you may have bought, you may have used once or twice when we were working through the release that this was released for, but now, pull it back out, use it again in a different way. So there's that. Tickets too. So there's lots of travel themes. We're talking about Follow Me. And so this one has like a boarding ticket, tickets to paradise. So again, it was, coordinated for a different release, but you can use it for this one. You could stamp this on those pattern papers, fussy cut it out, create little ephemera pieces. So if you've got this one, pull it out, use it. If it is still available, they will be linked down below. Probably I'm just gonna link to the stamp section of By the Well4God, and then you can use the search bar to search for the particular stamp. So that's tickets to. Point to the Sky. So these girls, very much like more of an autumn color theme for the release that these were for, but you can paint these however, and they go well with the girls that are in this release. I'm trying to find an example of them. Here we go. So here you can see the girls with the hats. Very easily could create these to coordinate with this kit just by changing the colors that you use and being, a little messy with how you color them in. So that is Point to the Sky. Lindsey Splatters, of course. This is a stamp set that I created with By the Well4God. If it is in stock, you could search it and you'll find it. I think it may be out of stock. But again, anytime that there's watercolor, this is a really easy way to put splatter on the page without making a mess, because I know not everybody loves mess. I actually cut mine in half so that I had different sections, so it was a little bit easier to stamp with in bits and pieces. Caffeinated outliner. This coordinates with the alpha stickers. I like the messy ones because that's how mine ends up because of my handshake. So I like the caffeinated set, but there's also a non-scribbly set as well. This one is, mine says Corinthians, but it's titled something else. It's the Ukraine stamp from By the Well4God. So the one that's in the shop is a fundraiser for Ukraine. So all of the proceeds go to Samaritan's Purse to help support the refugees from Ukraine. It is 2 Corinthians 4:17-18 written out. Again, not necessarily a scripture that we're going to cover with this kit, but it just is a fun, texture that I can add if I want some scripty texture on something. This is one of those ones, again, that just kind of stays in my kit, in my cart all the time. Blooming Prayers. So while there is the florals that you can coordinate with the release, I wanted to go through and pick out some other florals that I thought may work. They're definitely not the same cherry blossoms, but they have kind of a loose watercolor look that I thought would coordinate well with this release. So Blooming Prayers. Of More Value. This was released kind of the same time, a couple years ago, probably now, I think. But these are tulips, but again, you can really create a very easy watercolor look with these. You've got the filler, it's like a layering stamp. So this is the outline, and then you fill it in with the solid pieces. And so if you would to color this in with Neocolor 2 crayons and then stamp it down, you know, spritz it with water, stamp it, gives you a very soft watercolor look. Another way to get watercolor in the illustrating Bible without having to really work the paper. But this little blossom here kind of reminded me of the blossoms from this release as well. So pulled that one out. Lots of flowers, guys. Definitely not gonna use them all. Again, it's just kind of a reminder you may have one or two. Spring petals, I thought these were kind of similar, kind of watercolor blossom look. On the Road, this one I picked particularly because it has that bicycle. So there is this stamp that has the larger bicycle pieces, but if you were wanting, you know, another little bicycle, this has those tulip blossoms in there. So it's a little bit different, but I thought it was cute nonetheless. So there's that one. Hope's Door. So if you watched my tips and tricks video where I show how to do the no line watercoloring using Strive to Enter, it does look like this one is sold out. They may be restocking it, but at this point it is sold out. But you could do the similar technique with this stamp set. I even showed it in a video at one point, I think. So using those brush markers, stamping it down, using a water brush to pull out the color, you could get a very soft look. And again, I thought that it went with the doors. It's a little bit of a different style, but if you're really wanting to embrace the, you know, the doors for whatever reason, whatever journaling theme that you're doing, this would be a good one to do that with. Foundational fillers. So this was a text stamp, but it had some cobblestones and stone paths that I thought would coordinate well with this release if you're wanting a stamp as opposed to the stencil. Remembrance, same idea. You've got those little stone textures in there if you're just wanting a little bit of stone texture on the page. This is one to pull out. You know, sometimes we just look at a stamp set and go, oh, well, that's not at all. You know, we're not doing jars and, you know, little sprigs and things like that. But sometimes there's smaller pieces in there that you can use with other kits. There was a little typewriter die cut in the Follow Me devotional kit, and so I pulled out the commanding type. If for some reason I want a bigger typewriter, there is this stamp set that has this little tag that fits in there. So these also had some things that I thought would go well. Follow Him, hear God's voice. So some phrases in there that could kind of coordinate as well, but you could also stamp, you know, write whatever you want on that little tag and fit it in the typewriter. Firm foundation. So throughout here, again, there's lots of doorways and structures and buildings. And so this is one that you may have passed on or may have picked up and only used once or twice. So pull it back out. We can use it again with that watercolor, like brush marker. No line watercolor technique that I did. You could do the same thing with these buildings and create a scene. It is a little bit smaller scaled, but if you're working in a smaller margin, that would be great. Follow Jesus well. So there are, again, follow Jesus. You know, the arrow, so different signs that I thought would kind of work well with that. And if you just do really soft watercolors, it'll take away that really bold image of the stamp and make it a little bit softer to go along with the release. And then this one, magnification. So I had this idea. These are so fun, these little scenes. And so I thought you could cut them down and use the stamp and create little Polaroids. And so this was an idea that I had to kind of create little Polaroid images. So rather than sticking them directly down on the page, you could and then stamp this over, but you could create like a little ephemera piece that way. So yes, this is a stack of Polaroids, but you could also just cut around that top one and just have that one Polaroid stamp and just create these little Polaroid scenes with that stamp. So that was kind of my thinking behind magnification, and you'll see that with some of the other things that I pulled out of my stash. So there are the stamps that I pulled from ByTheWell4God. All right, moving on to dies and embossing folders and things like that. Now I did pull this stamp out from Stampers Anonymous. This is Floral Outlines, totally different florals than what are in the kit, but I really love the sketchy softness of them, and so I thought that they would be fun to use. This is a favorite stamp of mine from Stampers Anonymous, and so every chance I can get to use it, I try to, and so I pulled that out and might use that. This you could even do like in a background, tone on tone, really soft, just adding some interest, so I pulled that set out. But then moving on to dies. So like I said, the Polaroid theme, if I wanted to create more Polaroids with those images, again, not watercoloring directly on the page, I could watercolor on a piece of watercolor cardstock, create a scene, layer it with a Polaroid, and then attach that to the page. And then that way I'm not watercoloring directly to the paper. So this set is from Paper Rose. It's called Polaroid Frame. It comes with this large Polaroid die and then some little like labels and things like that that you can attach on there. This does require a die cutting machine. If you've never done die cutting before, I will link a Tip Tuesday down below that kind of explains what you need, how to do it, you know, different ways that you can use it. But you could die cut this out of the patterned papers and create little custom Polaroid frames and then do like a watercolor cardstock scene in the background or those clear stickers. I mean, I just thought you could kind of go nuts creating pieces that then you would attach to the page. So there's that. I also pulled out this nested pocket. I love doing pockets to tuck things into, and so this is a set from scrapbook.com. It is a whole bunch of different sizes of pockets. It has the tabs so that you can fold them over and just adhere it to the page. Again, you can use the pattern papers from the release and die cut these out of that and create your own pockets. Die cuts, you know, I love die cuts. I try to use those as much as possible. So these were 2 from Paper Rose. These are Gum Leaves 5 and Gum Leaves 4. They have a solid image and an outline image. You could die cut these from the pattern papers or create your own custom colored cardstocks with the spray stains or inks or even watercolor. And it just adds another like paper element that you could pair with the die cuts. I'm trying to find one of the florals here. One of the floral pieces have some leaves poking out and it just adds a little more texture and dimension. So those are Gum Leaves 5 and Gum Leaves 4 from Paper Rose. Tag dies. So this is a die, hands down, one of my most used dies that I've bought. This is the nested tag die from scrapbook.com. You can see it's a variety of sizes. This is not the same die shape as what's in the tag bob. So none of these perfectly line up. The shape is slightly different. The size is slightly different. But you could, if this is sold out, you could create your own with the paper pack and these. Or you could create some of these to fill in with your tag bob if you wanted to add some additional little pieces. This comes with the different hole sizes, the hole reinforcers. There's even a teeny tiny little tag in there. So this is kind of one of my most used dies. Sticking with dies, again, I will not use all of these, but I'm trying to pull from my stash so I can remember things. This is a new one from Tim Holtz. This is Modern Floristry. Now this is very like modern, but by using soft colors and watercolors, I think you could get this to really look like the soft watercolors in the kit. So I pulled that one out. This one, this is small tattered florals. So this definitely could look like blossoms on a branch. This one you can leave flat and kind of stack up with the layers, but it's actually meant to be shaped. And so that's why I put the shaping kit in the cart again this time around. There's videos online if you search Sizzix shaping kit, shows you how to use this to shape the paper. I use this for the butterfly that I did in the tips and trick video last month, and it just adds some dimension. So you may not want dimension in your journaling Bible, but maybe if you're doing the tag ring or something like that, you could definitely add some dimension and really sculpt these flowers into 3D flowers that then fit on that branch there. So these are a set of dies that do that. This one is Funky Floral number 1. Again, I probably won't use this one, but it does have some floral shapes that by using some soft watercolors, if I wanted some additional flowers on there, I could do that. This is Crochet. Now this looks very like, I don't know, haunted house, the way that it is on here. But again, by using softer colors, I could cut it out of watercolor paper and then, you know, put some watercolor on there, give it a really soft look, and just kind of gives you a feminine feel that you can add to the page. So there is Crochet. And then, of course, the brushstroke florals, because these are like watercolor florals. You've seen me probably use these several times. I used them last month with the papers. So I went through and found papers that were kind of more neutral without a lot of pattern on it and used those to layer. So like if I use this one and this one, and use this as the highlight layer. So you can see here, this darker is a piece that cuts out and then that lighter blue cuts out. So I could layer this on top of this and create a flower just with the papers from the release. Or you can print or cut them out of, you know, mixed media paper, watercolor, cardstock, and then color them after the fact and color them with watercolors or spray stains or whatever you want like that. These are really big, bold florals, and there is 1 through 4, so I definitely wanted to include those. Next are some embossing folders. So this one, of course, is Cobblestone number 2. Definitely going with that cobblestone theme. In the tips and trick video, I show you how to dry emboss with the stencils, but if you're wanting some extra texture, these 3D texture folders are great for that. There is this damask pattern, which there isn't really a damask in the release for Follow Me, but again, if I did really soft watercolor colors, it would do a fun texture piece. And then this is doily. So it's got this really pretty doily texture that you can do with that folder. Not a whole lot of folders this time around, but a few. So that is a look at what's in the second section of my cart. Let me clear everything off and we'll get to the last section. All right, so this section is mostly going to be papers, vellums, tools, like larger tools, and my Bible. So I am using the Illustrating Bible. This is the gray NIV version. Search around. I know sometimes Dayspring has sales going. If there is a coupon code, I'll put it down below. You know, there's been a variety of versions out. I've used a variety of the versions. There's like the pink cover, green cover, the gray one. There's a lot of different ones, but this has a wide 4-inch margin in it. This is what I keep referring to when I say that it's not great for watercolor. I don't think that I tested in the back of this one, no. But I don't even have an example in this particular one, but the paper is thicker than traditional Bible paper, but however it's made, if it gets too wet and you're working it with the brush, the paper starts to kind of break down a little bit. And so I won't, you know, that's why I gave you so many ideas for ways to use the watercolor in here, and I will continue to give you some ideas, but it does have a really nice margin size, and I know a lot of you guys create in this particular Bible, and so I thought I would pull it out and use this one for this month. That way I can, you know, give you guys some inspiration if you're creating through that Bible this month. I also have a big packet of paper, like I mentioned. So this is just a file folder with some vellum in it. I also have a big pack of colored vellums that I will link down below. I also have glitter cardstock, which I won't be using this month, but that's in there also. But colored vellums that are kind of like a pearlescent vellum. And that way I'm not searching through my office trying to find my vellum. I have a package of Canson mixed media paper. If you watch my tips and tricks video, I kind of show how I use this. Again, if I'm using watercolor and don't want the stiffness of watercolor paper, this is a great alternative to that. So I've got a little bit of that in there. And then tools. So I've got a few tools. I pulled out my decal trimmer. Now this usually lives underneath my desk, but I liked that kind of like torn watercolor edge look, and this does it with a trimmer. So it actually has a deckled, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's like a, yeah, deckled edge, and it cuts it that way. So I'm gonna be using that this month. And then I have a couple of items from We Are Memory Keepers. So I have a frame punch board. Going along with that Polaroid idea, I could create Polaroids using this frame punch board and some paper. So if you don't have a die cutting machine, but you do want that Polaroid look, there's directions all over YouTube for how to use this. You set it up, put the paper in there, and you're able to cut out different frames out of paper to then, you know, use in your projects. So this is like an all-in-one punch board there. And then I pulled out my planner punch board. This was 100% inspired by Stephanie from the ByTheWell4God team last month that she did this. I know Taryn showed it also after she saw it. We're all kind of going nuts for this. Stephanie, why did we never think of this before? If she has the video showing what she did, I will link it down below. But she used the spiral punches. So the punch board typically comes with just regular hole punches that go in here, but you can buy a separate set of punches that are spiral punches. I've also done some videos where I show how to use these to create like insert pieces for that Illustrating Bible, since it has that coil binding. These are the set of punches punches that you would need for that. However, I think the newest ones is a different sizing and these don't work. But anyways, for the older ones it does. Or the spiral bound planners, things like that. But she used these and just punched the top of her journaling cards to create this fun texture at the top of her cards that looks like it's been torn out of a notebook. So rather than just having a straight edge like this or a torn edge, it just gives you a different texture. So you can punch that and have kind of a notebook texture on the edge of your journaling cards. So I definitely wanted to copy her and recreate that. So I put those in the cart as well. So there's a look at everything that's in my cart this month for Follow Me. I know that there was a lot jam-packed in there. Everything that I possibly can will be linked down below in the description box. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. Give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful and inspiring. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And click the bell notification button so you don't miss any future videos from me. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.